The twin suns burned low over the red horizon, and the air shimmered with dust. The human rancher named Eli wiped the sweat from his forehead, his mechanical gloves clicking softly as he guided a herd of ironback grazers into their pen. It was another long day on the quiet frontier world called Terran's Edge, a planet so far from the core that few ships ever came here. But that evening, as the last light faded, Eli saw something strange. A silver ship descended through the clouds, too clean, too royal for this dirty land. Its engines hummed with alien precision, and even the grazers turned their heads in fear. Eli frowned. He had seen alien traders before, but this ship looked like one from the noble houses, the kind that never came to places like his. The ship landed just beyond the ranch fence. Kicking up a storm of dust, 3 tall alien figures stepped out dressed in fine robes that shimmered under the dying light. Their faces were smooth and cold, eyes glowing with faint blue fire. They looked around with disgust, as if the air itself offended them. Eli walked forward slowly, his boots crunching on dry ground. "You lost?" he asked, his voice calm. The lead alien sneered. "Lost? No, human. We are delivering a gift," he said, motioning toward the ramp. A soft sound came from the shadows of the ship, like chains moving. Then she appeared, small and trembling. Her skin was pale silver, her eyes large and filled with fear. Her clothes were torn, her hair a dull shade of gray-blue, and around her wrists were metal cuffs. "This," the alien said, his tone dripping with mockery, "is our family's problem. We thought perhaps a creature like you would enjoy such company." The other aliens laughed, a cruel sound that echoed in the dry air. Eli's jaw tightened. He looked from the trembling girl to the aliens. "You can take your gift back," he said quietly. But they only laughed harder. "Oh no, human," the lead one said, throwing a small data chip to the ground. "She's yours now by galactic law. This transfer is final. We wouldn't want her ugliness near our home again." Before Eli could speak, the ship door closed. The engines roared, and the noble vessel rose back into the sky, leaving behind a trail of golden dust. Within moments, it vanished among the stars. Silence fell over the ranch. The alien girl stood there, shaking, her metal cuffs clinking together. She didn't speak, didn't even look up. Eli sighed, walking closer. "Hey," he said softly. "You okay?" She flinched, stepping back. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Please, don't hurt me." Eli paused, staring at her. "I'm not gonna hurt you," he said gently. He reached down, picked up the data chip, and read the message projected above it. It simply said, "For your amusement, human." His stomach twisted. He hated cruelty, and this was cruelty made into a joke. He took a slow breath and then crouched down. "What's your name?" he asked. She shook her head. I don't have one anymore." The human studied her quietly. Her skin shimmered faintly, her hands thin and scarred. Whatever her people had done, they had broken more than her body. They had broken her heart. Eli stood up and walked to his shed, returning with a small cutter tool. The alien girl tensed when she saw it. "It's okay," he said softly. "I'm just getting these chains off." He knelt and pressed the tool against the metal cuffs. Sparks hissed and the locks fell open. She stared at her freed wrists in disbelief. "There," Eli said. "No one's property here." She blinked, tears forming in her strange silver eyes. "Why?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Why help me? You don't even know me." Eli looked up at the twin suns fading behind the hills. "Because no one deserves to be treated like this," he said quietly. The night wind moved through the dry grass. The girl hugged her arms and looked around the strange land. She had never seen anything like it. The open sky, the scent of dust, the gentle hum of life. Everything here felt wrong, but also somehow peaceful. Eli motioned toward the farmhouse. "Come on, let's get you something to eat," he said. She hesitated, her bare feet touching the warm dirt. You really want me to come inside?" "Yeah," Eli said simply. "You look like you could use a meal." She followed him slowly. Her steps cautious, every sound, the door creaking, the hum of machines, even the smell of cooked grain, was alien to her. She sat quietly at the edge of the small table, hands folded, watching as Eli placed a plate of warm food in front of her. "You can eat," he said. She took a bite and froze, the taste filling her senses. For the first time in her life, someone had given her food not out of pity or command, but kindness. As the night deepened, Eli turned on a small lamp, its yellow light casting soft shadows. The alien girl sat there silent, her eyes moving across the strange human home. It wasn't rich or beautiful, but it was warm. Outside, the stars shone over the empty land. The noble ship that left her here was long gone. But something new had begun. For the first time in her life, the girl who was called ugly felt something she had never known before: safety. And as she watched the quiet human clean the table, she whispered to herself, almost without meaning to, "Maybe. Not all humans are cruel." Eli looked up at her voice and smiled slightly. "Get some rest," he said. "Tomorrow you'll need your strength." She nodded slowly, still unsure of what tomorrow even meant. But for tonight, under the warm light of a human home, she wasn't a joke or a shame or a gift nobody wanted. For the first time, she was simply someone. The first light of dawn touched the red hills of Terran's Edge. The wind carried the soft hum of ranch drones starting their morning patrol. Eli stepped outside, his boots crunching over dry soil. The alien girl was already awake, sitting near the fence, staring at the horizon like she had never seen a sunrise before. She sat there quietly, her silver skin glowing faintly in the early light. Her eyes followed the clouds as they drifted over the endless sky. She whispered something in her own language, a word Eli didn't understand, but it sounded like beautiful. He brought her a small metal cup of warm brew. "You slept all right?" he asked. She looked at him, hesitant. "Yes, I think so." Her voice was soft, uncertain, like a melody played for the first time. "Good," he said. "You can stay in the guest room until you figure things out." She blinked, confused. "Stay?" she repeated. "Yeah," Eli replied, leaning on the fence. "You got nowhere else to go, right?" Her gaze fell to the dirt. "No," she said quietly. They made sure of that. For a moment, silence stretched between them. Only the sound of wind and machines. Then Eli smiled. "Then this place is home for now." She didn't understand what that meant. Home for her people. Home was duty, perfection, and appearance. But this human spoke the word like it was something warm, something alive. Later that day, Eli showed her around the ranch. The alien girl followed carefully, her bare feet stepping over the dry grass. She watched him feed the grazers, repair fences, check the moisture lines. Everything he did was simple, but it had purpose. "What is this?" she asked, pointing to a large metallic creature chewing hay. "That's a grazer," he said, patting its side. "They're stubborn, but they don't bite much." She smiled faintly for the first time. "It looks kind," she said. Eli chuckled. "Kind? Maybe, or maybe just too lazy to be mean." She looked down at her hands, at the scars left by chains. "In my world, kindness is weakness," she whispered. Eli glanced at her. "Then your world's been lying to you," he said softly. The words hit her like a pulse through the air. She didn't know how to reply, so she just kept walking beside him. By midday, the heat rose. Eli set up shade screens near the barn. The alien girl helped him without being asked, her movements graceful yet careful. She didn't talk much, but every action showed she was trying to learn. When she reached for a tool, Eli noticed faint lines glowing under her skin, circuits or marks of alien origin. "You're not just any kind, are you?" he asked. She froze, her hands trembling. "No," she whispered. "I was from a noble house." Eli raised a brow. "Noble, huh? Guess that explains their attitude." She nodded weakly. "They called me flawed, said I embarrassed them." Her words carried pain. Not of anger, but of years of shame. Eli crouched near her. "They're the ones embarrassed by their own hearts," he said quietly. "Don't let them make you small." She looked at him. Confused again. "Why do you say such things?" "Because I mean them," Eli replied simply. "And because I've seen people rise from worse." As evening came, a trader ship passed in the sky. The alien girl stared at it longingly. "That's the direction of my home," she murmured. Eli stood beside her. You want to go back? She hesitated. No, not anymore. He nodded. Good, because you're safer here. Safe. She repeated the word, tasting it slowly like it was something new. That night, she sat near the fireplace while Eli checked his old communicator. He was reading the Galactic newsfeed suddenly. The screen flashed with a new headline. Noble House Zira announces the disowning of their daughter, gifted to human rancher. Eli's brow furrowed. Gifted? He muttered. She looked at the screen and froze. There was her face, a blurry image of her stepping off the noble ship. The words below made her chest tighten. They called her a failed genetic experiment and a creature unfit for society. She stood up quickly, shaking. They're mocking me again, she whispered. Her voice breaking, Eli turned off the screen. Let them mock, he said calmly. Their laughter means nothing here. Tears fell down her cheeks. You don't understand, they'll make it a story. The whole galaxy will see me as a joke. Eli handed her a cloth to wipe her tears. Then we'll give them a better story, he said. She looked up, confused. Better story? He nodded. They sent you here to humiliate you, right? Then we'll live in a way that makes them regret it. The words burned into her heart, something inside her stirred. Hope. She sat back down quietly, her gaze fixed on the quiet fire. The warmth touched her skin, and for the first time, she didn't feel cold inside. Later that night, when Eli had gone to rest, she walked outside under the twin moons. She placed her hands on the dirt and whispered to herself, I am not their failure. The stars shimmered above her. Endless and bright, for the first time she felt connected to this strange world. Its rawness, its life, its warmth. From inside, Eli watched her through the window, a faint smile on his face. He didn't know her full story yet, but something in his heart told him she wasn't just some broken soul left on his doorstep. No, she was something far greater, and the galaxy would one day know it too. Days passed quietly on the edge of the desert world. Eli worked on the ranch, fixing fences and adjusting solar panels. The alien girl, who had begun calling herself Lyra, helped him every morning. She no longer trembled when she spoke, no longer hid her face behind her hair. Her eyes had grown brighter, filled with a strange kind of peace. But far beyond the skies of Terran's Edge, laughter echoed across the galaxy. The noble houses had discovered what became of their gift, and the story was spreading faster than light. On the galactic net, headlines flickered like fire. The ugly alien bride of a human rancher. The noble house's disgrace lives among beasts. A human's pet. The shame of Zira. In the floating palaces of the elite, nobles sipped shining drinks and mocked her name. The human must be desperate, one sneered. Imagine marrying something like that, another laughed. They are perfect for each other, both primitive. Back on the dusty world, Eli had no idea yet that billions of beings were laughing. He was more concerned about fixing the water recycler that kept breaking. Hand me that wrench, Lyra, he said. She passed it to him with a small smile. You work too hard, she said softly. Someone has to keep this place alive, Eli replied. Tightening the bolts when the system came back online with a hum, Lyra clapped her hands, small sparks of biolight glowing from her palms. She laughed, the sound light and clear. Eli looked up and smiled. You got a good laugh, he said. She tilted her head. Good? Yeah, he said, real, not fake like the nobles. For a while, everything felt calm again. That evening, Eli checked his communicator for trade updates, but instead of prices or shipment schedules, a message appeared. It was a link from an old friend in the colony hub. You should see this, Eli, he tapped it. The holoscreen burst to life, and suddenly, there they were, himself and Lyra, frozen in a photo taken from orbit. The message beneath it read, The human fool who took in the broken daughter of Zira. Eli's brow tightened. He scrolled through the comments, laughter, insults, even bets on how long before he sold her for scrap. His jaw clenched. Guess the joke's gone viral, he muttered. Lyra came closer, curious. What is that? She asked. Eli turned the screen so she could see. Her breath caught. Her own people's symbols glowed across the display. She read the lines slowly, each word cutting like a blade. They are laughing again, she whispered. Eli closed the device. Ignore them. She shook her head.
Tears forming. You don't understand, Eli.
The nobles rule the media, the council, everything. They will make sure everyone sees me as trash and you as the fool who picked it up. Eli looked at her for a long moment, then stood. Let them talk, he said. The galaxy's been wrong before. The next morning, strange visitors arrived. Traders, farmers, and even travelers from nearby outposts. They all wanted to see the human who took in the alien girl. Some came with curiosity, others with cruel humor. A tall miner smirked. So it's true. You keep that alien thing here? Eli didn't answer. He kept working on the grazer pen. Lyra stood inside, watching silently. Her heart pounding, the man leaned closer, whispering loud enough for all to hear. Bet she ain't even human enough to talk. Before Eli could speak, Lyra stepped forward, her voice calm but clear. I talk, she said, her glowing eyes fixed on him. And I listen. Something your kind seems to forget. The crowd went silent. The miner's smirk faded. He muttered and walked away. Eli smiled faintly. Guess you can handle yourself. Lyra nodded. You said not to be small. That night, as the stars turned over Terran's edge, Eli sat on the porch sipping from a metal cup. Lyra joined him quietly. The air was cool and full of whispering winds. Do you regret it? She asked suddenly. Regret what? Taking me in. Eli looked at her, his eyes steady. No, not once. But your people laugh, my people laugh. Everyone sees us as a joke, she said softly. Eli chuckled. Let them laugh, Lyra. Laughing's easy when you're afraid of the truth, she frowned. What truth? That maybe kindness is stronger than power, he said, and that scares them. Lyra looked down, her hands glowing faintly. In my world, no one spoke like you do. In mine, Eli said. No one listens anymore. While they talked beneath the stars, far away in the noble courts of Zira, a messenger bowed before the alien lord. My lord, he said, the girl lives with the human. The story has reached all sectors. The lord's eyes burned like frozen fire. Good, he said coldly. Let her feel the weight of shame until she breaks. But his words would soon come back to haunt him. Because the galaxy had begun to notice something unexpected. The image of the ugly alien girl and her human companion was spreading for another reason. Not mockery, but fascination. Some saw defiance in her eyes, courage in the human's calm, and love in the way they stood together. A spark had been lit, small and fragile, but bright enough to reach hearts across worlds. Back on the ranch, Lyra stared at the stars. Do you think they'll ever stop laughing? Eli looked up, his eyes reflecting starlight. No, he said, but one day they'll listen. She didn't understand what he meant yet, but his voice carried a promise. And somewhere deep inside, beneath all her fear and shame, Lyra began to believe that maybe, just maybe, this strange human rancher was the beginning of something far greater than both of them. Night fell heavy over Terran's edge. The twin moons hung low like silent witnesses. Eli sat on his porch, a rifle across his knees, staring at the endless desert. The air was too quiet, the wind too still. He had lived long enough on the frontier to know what that meant. Trouble was coming. Inside the farmhouse, Lyra watched the stars through the window. Her eyes glowed faintly in the dark. They won't stop, will they? She whispered. Eli didn't turn around. No, he said. People like them don't stop until someone makes them. He stood slowly, checking the power cell of his rifle. It hummed with a low blue charge. Lyra came closer, fear in her voice. You can't fight them. Eli, they'll come with ships, soldiers, machines. Eli gave a small half-smile. Maybe, he said, but they've never met a rancher who survived dust storms and rust beasts. She didn't understand his calm, but she could feel the strength behind it. The kind that came not from pride, but from love by dawn. The sky cracked open with thunder that wasn't thunder. Bright streaks of light tore across the heavens as 3 alien ships descended. Their engines howled, their metallic shadows covering the ranch. Eli stepped out, hat low over his eyes, rifle slung over his shoulder. The ships landed, kicking up a storm of dust. The ramp dropped, and out marched soldiers in silver armor, their faces hidden behind shining masks, their weapons glowing with plasma light. At the front stood a tall alien commander, his voice sharp like glass. Human, he called out. You hold what is not yours, surrender the girl, and we will leave you alive. Eli's voice was calm. Not mine, he said. Then whose is she? The commander smirked. She belongs to the house of Zira. She is property, not a person. Lyra stood in the doorway, trembling. "Eli, please," she whispered. Eli didn't look back. "You hear that, Lyra? They think people are property." The commander raised his weapon. "This is your final warning." "Human?" Eli's fingers brushed against the trigger of his rifle. "Yeah," he said softly, "and this is mine." The first shot came from the sky, a beam of light that struck the ground beside him. Eli rolled behind a barrier, his drones activating. Small metal spheres rose from the sand. Forming a shield grid around the house, the soldiers advanced. But the human rancher fought like the desert itself. Patient, silent, relentless. Each shot he fired was clean and precise, taking out one soldier after another. His old defense bots, patched with scrap and willpower, whirred to life, spitting plasma fire across the battlefield. Lyra watched from inside, her heart pounding. She could see Eli moving through the smoke, fearless, protecting the home they had built together. The alien commander shouted, "He's just one man." But the soldiers hesitated. For every step they took, the rancher struck back, faster than they expected, smarter than their systems could predict. From the hill beyond, one of Eli's repair towers overloaded, exploding in a flash that sent a wave of dust and heat through the air. The soldiers fell back, disoriented. When the smoke cleared, Eli stood alone in the middle of the yard, his rifle still warm. His clothes burned, his arm bleeding, but his eyes steady. "Anyone else want to talk about property?" He shouted. The alien commander stepped forward, his voice trembling with rage. "You don't know who you are defying, human." Eli raised his rifle again. "You'd be surprised how little that matters out here." Before the commander could give the order, Lyra ran forward. "Stop!" she cried, standing between them. Her hands glowed bright, energy crackling in the air. Eli shouted, "Lyra, get back!" But she didn't move. "Enough blood," she said, her voice echoing with strange resonance. The glow from her body pulsed outward, shaking the sand beneath their feet. The alien soldiers froze, their armor flickering as her energy touched their systems. The commander stared in disbelief. "Impossible," he hissed. "Your kind was never meant to." Lyra's eyes burned silver. "You never let me be anything," she said. "Now I choose for myself." The soldiers dropped their weapons. Their systems shutting down, the energy faded, leaving silence and the faint sound of wind returning to the desert. Eli walked toward her slowly, lowering his rifle. "You okay?" he asked. She turned, tears running down her glowing cheeks. "I didn't want to hurt them." "You didn't," he said softly. "You just reminded them what power really looks like." Hours later, the alien ships lifted off, leaving behind their fallen pride. The commander glared down at the ranch as he departed, his voice cold with hate. "This isn't over." Eli watched them go. "It never is," he muttered. Lyra stood beside him, silent. The rising suns painted the horizon gold. The air was heavy with smoke and peace both at once. She looked up at him. "You could have run," she said. He smiled faintly. "Yeah. But then who'd fix the fences?" She laughed, soft and trembling, but real. He placed a hand on her shoulder. "You're safe here," he said. She looked at the ruined fields and the broken drones. "Safe?" she asked. He nodded. "As long as I'm breathing." And for the first time since she was born, Lyra believed him, but far across the stars, on the world of Zira, the noble lord watched the footage from his commander's helmet. His fury burned cold and sharp. "Send a message to the council," he said. "If the human wants war, he'll have one." The sun rose red that morning. The smoke of burned metal drifted over Terran's edge. The ranch that once smelled of dust and feed now reeked of plasma scorch and ash. Eli stood in silence, his shirt torn, his hands trembling slightly as he tightened the straps on his repaired drone harness. Beside him, Lyra knelt on the ground, her hands glowing faintly as she healed a wounded grazer. The creature's metallic hide shimmered as its circuits mended under her touch. Her power pulsed gently through the soil, life blooming where death had burned. Eli watched her quietly. "You're something else, you know that?" he said. Lyra looked up, her silver eyes still tired. "You think that's a good thing?" "I think," he said slowly, "the galaxy's too blind to see what's right in front of it." She smiled faintly. "That's what you always say." "Because it's true," he replied. The next day, word spread fast across nearby colonies. Videos of the battle had leaked. A single human defending his home against noble soldiers, and an alien girl stopping an army with her bare hands. It was supposed to be another piece of mockery for the Galactic net. But something unexpected happened. People weren't laughing anymore. Miners, traders, workers, and even alien servants began sharing the footage, writing messages like, "Courage isn't born of blood," and "the human protected what they called trash. Maybe we all need to rethink what's beautiful." In the halls of the noble house, this new reaction caused fury. The Lord of Zira slammed his fist against the table, his eyes blazing blue. "They dare to turn our shame into inspiration?" He roared. "Burn that world to dust. Show the galaxy what happens when they mock us." A fleet was dispatched. Not a few ships this time, but dozens. Eli felt it before he saw it. The air pressure shifted. The horizon darkened. The ground itself seemed to hold its breath. Lyra stepped outside, her heart racing. "Eli," she whispered. "They're coming again." He looked at the sky, already streaked with fire. "Yeah," he said quietly, "and this time, they're bringing the whole family." The sky lit up as warships descended through the clouds, like silver serpents falling from heaven. The hum of their engines echoed for miles, shaking the earth beneath his boots. "Get inside," Eli said, loading his rifle. Lyra shook her head. "No, not again. You'll die if you fight them alone." Eli smiled slightly. "Then I won't fight alone." He activated the ranch network, an old system used to warn other settlements. His message went out across the colonies, simple and calm. They're not after one man anymore. They're after the idea that a human and an alien can stand as equals. If that matters to you, come. For a long moment. Nothing happened. The sky filled with thunder, the noble fleet ready to strike. Then one voice came through the comm. Colony ship Emberlight responding. Then another. "The miners of Sector 12 stand with the rancher." And another. "The scavenger crew broken wing en route." Within an hour, dozens of ships appeared on scanners, small freighters and old war rigs, flying under the human colonist flag. Lyra stared in disbelief. "They're coming for us?" Eli nodded, his voice quiet. "No, Lyra. They're coming because of you." The battle began with light and thunder. The noble fleet opened fire, their plasma beams tearing through the upper atmosphere. Eli's allied ships scattered like sparks in the dark. Some were destroyed instantly, but others fought back, sending missiles streaking through the clouds. On the ground, Lyra stood in the center of the ranch, energy flowing through her veins like fire. "I can help," she said. Eli shook his head. "You've done enough." But she looked at him, tears in her eyes. "You told me not to be small." Before he could stop her, she stepped forward, raising her arms toward the sky. The glow around her body flared bright as starlight. The air vibrated, and a wave of raw energy burst upward, slicing through the smoke-filled clouds. The fleet's targeting systems flickered, their shields destabilizing. The commanders shouted in panic, "What is she?" From the flagship, the noble lord watched, speechless. "She was supposed to be defective," he whispered. Lyra's voice carried through the air like a song, soft but endless. "You called me ugly, unwanted, broken," she said. "But I was never the failure you were." Her energy reached one of the lead ships, shorting its reactor. It exploded in a silent flash of light that painted the desert gold. Eli ran to her side, grabbing her hand. "That's enough," he said. "You'll kill yourself," she smiled weakly. "Then I'll die free." He shook his head. "Not on my watch." He pulled her close, shielding her as debris rained down. Around them, the Allied ships pushed the noble fleet back. The human colonies fought with old ships and stronger hearts. Hours later, the sky cleared. The noble fleet retreated, leaving behind fire, wreckage, and silence. Eli helped Lyra sit down beside a broken grazer, her body glowing faintly. "You did it," he whispered. She looked up at the stars, her voice barely a breath. "No, we did it." The communicator blinked, messages pouring in from all across the colonies, humans and aliens sending thanks, hope and vows to stand together. One message read, "You gave us something we lost, the belief that kindness can win." Eli smiled. "Guess the galaxy stopped laughing." Lyra nodded. Maybe they finally listened. The fires burned on the horizon, painting the sky in gold and red, like dawn rising after endless night. And in that light, one truth stood clear: the galaxy would never be the same again. The stars above Terran's edge were no longer quiet. The battle had ended, but the galaxy was still burning with whispers. Every network, every outpost, every station carried the same story. The alien girl who defied her noble blood, and the human rancher who stood against a fleet. Some called it madness, some called it love, but most called it hope, far away on the shining world of Zira, inside the cold glass towers of the noble house. Lord Wron, Lyra's father, watched the recordings in silence. The hollows showed his daughter standing in the desert light, her silver skin glowing, her hands raised against his soldiers, and beside her, a human holding a rifle like a king guarding his throne. The other nobles whispered behind him. "Your blood has brought shame," one said. "Your daughter has become a symbol for inferiors," another added. Lord Wron turned slowly, his eyes like frozen storms. "Symbols fade," he said coldly. "I will erase this one myself." 2 weeks later, the sky over Terran's Edge turned dark again. But this time it wasn't warships. It was a single vessel, massive and ancient, bearing the crest of the noble house. Eli stood outside watching it descend. Lyra stepped beside him, her hands shaking. "It's him," she whispered. Eli glanced at her. "Your father?" She nodded. "He never travels if he came here. He means to end this himself." The ship landed slowly, its engines quiet, the dust parting around its gleaming hull. A ramp lowered, and from the silver mist Lord Wron appeared, tall, cold, and wrapped in royal armor that glowed faintly under the twin suns. Behind him stood dozens of guards, but none moved without his signal. Lyra took a step forward, her voice small. "Father," she said. He looked at her without emotion. "You should have died in the lab," he said, his tone sharp and empty. "Instead, you bring disgrace upon your family and your kind." Eli's hand twitched toward his weapon, but Lyra raised a hand, stopping him. Her voice trembled but didn't break. "You gave me away like trash, you called me broken, but here, I found people who saw me as more than a mistake." Wron's eyes narrowed. "People?" he sneered. "You mean this primitive?" He pointed at Eli, who met his gaze without fear. "I don't care what you call me," Eli said quietly. "But I'll never call her a mistake." The noble lord's expression flickered for the briefest second, then hardened again. "You've poisoned her with weakness," he said. "You've turned her into one of you." Lyra took another step closer. "No, father, he turned me into myself." Her voice carried across the wind. Strong now, not trembling, not afraid. From the distance, engines began to hum, ships from nearby colonies arriving again, not for battle but to witness. Hundreds of humans and aliens filled the sky in silent formation. Their ships cast long shadows over the desert as they hovered. Watching, recording, the noble lord glanced upward. "You think they can save you?" he asked. Lyra looked at the hovering fleet, then back at him. "No," she said softly. "They came because they finally believed that no one should belong to anyone." Eli stepped beside her. "You taught the galaxy cruelty," he said to the Lord. "But she taught them what love looks like." For the first time in his life, Wron hesitated. The word love was foreign to his world, an emotion seen as weakness. Yet as he looked at his daughter standing tall beside a human, unbroken, unashamed, he saw something that power had never given him. Peace. The guards behind him shifted, uneasy. Some lowered their weapons slightly, watching their commander in silence. The moment hung in the air like a storm about to break. Then the sky filled with sound. The voice of the Galactic net broadcasting live from orbit. "This is the first meeting between the noble Lord of Zira and his exiled daughter. The one called Lyra of Terran's Edge. Billions were watching. Across countless systems, the noble Lord couldn't hide anymore." Lyra raised her head. "Father, I am not your failure," she said clearly. "I am proof that even the smallest life can shine when it is free." Her words spread like lightning across the galaxy. The crowd watching from orbit erupted in cheers and messages. Across hundreds of worlds, people whispered her name. Lyra of Terran's Edge. Lord Wron's expression cracked, his voice low. "You have chosen your path," Lyra nodded. "Yes," she said. "And I will never walk it in shame again." He turned slowly toward his ship, his voice echoing in the hot wind. "You are no longer of my house." Lyra's answer came like sunlight after endless night. "Then I'll build my own." The noble lord paused, just for a heartbeat, then walked away. The ramp closed, and the massive ship lifted into the sky, disappearing into the clouds. The silence that followed was endless. The onlookers on the colony ships began to cheer, their voices rising like thunder. Eli turned to Lyra. "You okay?" She nodded, tears shining in her eyes. For the first time, yes, he smiled. Good. Because you just made history. She laughed softly. I only spoke the truth. That's why it worked, he said. As the sun set behind the hills, the ranch stood silent again. But this time it wasn't lonely. Ships landed nearby. People coming to see the place where everything had changed. A miner from Sector 12 approached Eli. You're the one who stood for her, he said. Eli shook his head. No, she stood for herself. I just made sure the wind was at her back. Lyra stood on the porch, the wind playing through her silver hair. The stars were brighter that night. As if the galaxy itself had opened its eyes, she looked up and whispered, The house I build won't be of stone or gold. It'll be of kindness. Eli smiled quietly beside her, and that's one foundation they'll never tear down. The sun climbed slowly over the horizon of Terran's edge, painting the ranch in gold. The land that had once been a place of exile and shame now looked alive. The old fences were repaired. The grazers roamed freely again, and the air carried the sound of laughter. Lyra stood by the corral, her silver skin glowing softly in the morning light. She watched the horizon where the twin suns met, feeling the warmth touch her face. For years, warmth had meant pain, but here, it felt like life. Behind her, Eli worked silently, repairing a drone's wing. His sleeves were rolled up, his hands steady. He glanced at her with a small smile. You look like someone who finally found peace, he said. She turned toward him, her eyes soft. Maybe I did, she replied. Or maybe peace found me. Weeks had passed since her father left. The galaxy hadn't forgotten. Every network still replayed the moment when the noble lord turned away, and his daughter claimed her own destiny. The name Lyra of Terran's Edge had become a symbol, carved into the hearts of millions. Some called her the light of two worlds. Others simply called her the alien who chose a human. Eli didn't care for names. He only cared that the woman who had once trembled in chains could now laugh without fear. One afternoon, a transport ship landed near the ranch. It was small, unarmed, and carried no noble insignia. Out stepped a group of humans and aliens together, leaders of different colonies. They approached Eli and Lyra with quiet smiles. The speaker, a short human woman with gray hair, bowed slightly. We came to thank you, she said. What you did changed everything. People talk to each other now, not just about each other, an alien beside her added. We even have humans serving on noble councils now. The word property has been erased from our law. Eli nodded humbly. That's good, he said. But the credit belongs to her. Lyra shook her head. No, it belongs to kindness. They all shared a silent look, the kind of look that said they were standing at the edge of something new, something better. Before they left, the human woman handed Lyra a small box. Inside was a simple silver band, smooth and glowing faintly with energy. A gift, she said. From the people of the colonies, they said. It should belong to you. Lyra held it carefully, her fingers trembling. It's beautiful, she whispered. Eli smiled quietly. More than beautiful, he said. It's fitting. That night, under a sky filled with more stars than she had ever seen, Eli built a small fire near the corral. The night wind was cool, carrying the faint hum of distant ships. Lyra joined him, the silver band still in her hand. You built this fire for something, she said softly. Eli nodded. For something important. He looked nervous, a strange sight for the man who had faced armies. I'm not good at speeches, he said, but I figure, if we can stand against the galaxy, we can stand together too. Lyra tilted her head, her eyes glimmering. Together. He took a slow breath. Yeah, he said simply, as partners, as family, whatever this new world calls us. He reached out his hand, and for a moment the whole desert seemed to hold its breath. Lyra looked at him, the man who had broken her chains, defended her name, and taught her that love was not weakness but strength. She smiled, the kind of smile that makes the stars jealous. Yes, she whispered, sliding the glowing band onto her finger. I choose you. The next day, the colonies gathered not for war but for union. Ships of every shape filled the skies. Banners of both human and alien design waved across the plains. Eli stood beside Lyra beneath the twin suns. A small crowd surrounded them. Miners, traders, soldiers, children, even noble defectors who had come to witness history. The ceremony was simple, no grand temples or royal robes, just two souls standing on the soil they had fought to protect. A young girl stepped forward holding a crystal device. "Do you take each other?" she said shyly. "Not as owner or property, not as noble or servant, but as one heart across two worlds?" Eli looked at Lyra, his voice steady. "I do." Lyra smiled, tears shining like starlight.
"I do." When their hands met, the crystal glowed bright.
A pulse of light spread through the crowd, then upward into the sky. Where it shimmered like a second sunrise, the galaxies watched, billions witnessing the union that no one believed possible. Later that evening, after the guests had gone, they stood alone beneath the stars. Lyra rested her head on Eli's shoulder. "Do you think they'll remember us?" she asked softly. Eli chuckled. "Maybe, or maybe they'll just remember what we stood for." "And what was that?" she asked. He looked at the endless horizon. "That love doesn't ask what species you are," Lyra smiled. "Then that's enough." They stood there in silence, the wind carrying the scent of dust and life around them. The land that once held nothing but loneliness now pulsed with quiet joy. The stars above shimmered brighter, and for a brief moment, the whole galaxy seemed to bow to them, to the rancher and the alien bride who had changed everything. And somewhere deep among the stars, in the halls of power and pride, those who once mocked them fell silent because the laughter had died long ago. In its place grew something far more powerful: respect for the girl who was once unwanted, and the human who refused to let her believe she was anything less than extraordinary. Together they became a legend whispered across the stars, the human and his alien bride, the love that united worlds.